we just say apply text to image. Great. Watercolor a beach scene. Yep, that definitely kind of looks like what we're talking about. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to go from blank slate, tabula rasa, okay? You've just bought a new computer to do AI art on. And you don't know how to code, you don't even know what a code is, and you wanna get going on your local machine. So I'm going to show you how to do that with what I believe is the best plugin for doing machine learning locally right now. The only thing that you've done already is you've installed Krita. You've gone to this website, you've gone to the download page, you've downloaded it for Windows. And that's all you've done. And you want to go from here to being able to like do stable diffusion locally. Okay, we're just going to follow this guide here, which is set up on the plugin page. I will link that in the description. And luckily, the steps are super, super straightforward. So first, what we're going to do is install the code. And then after the code's running on our computer, we're going to install the Krita plugin. And then it'll be running on Krita as well. So those are the steps. Okay, and they're actually really easy to follow. All we have to do first, we have to install Python 3.10. And so a way to sort of test if you've installed it correctly is you go to your command prompt and then you type in where Python. And that'll show you where the Python is. And then if you type Python, then what happens to me is I get this logo page, this Microsoft App Store page or something. So it says, no, you can't Python. And maybe Python version, that's a good one. And it's like, no, screw you, you can't do that. So we'll know that we've gotten everything working correctly when the Python version says, yep, 3.10.6. Okay, now we have to install Python for Windows. Okay, so we found it by Googling Python 3.10.6, and then we actually got to the page here. Great, cool. And now we have to work out what we want to do to install, because there are a few options here. I want to use the Windows installer, but let's check out system first to see if we're 32-bit or 64-bit. So system information, and then we're going to look for this thing here. Okay, system type 64 base PC. So now we know we're 64-bit, which is great. It says system 32. That's fine. Ignore that. Who cares? System 32, that means something else. Okay, so we're going to do the 64-bit installer. That's going to start downloading. It won't take that long. Okay, in the meantime, let's install the next thing, which is Git. This is a special program for Windows that allows you to pull things from GitHub. Luckily, we already know we're a 64-bit, so we can just go ahead and click on that. And so now we're installing that installer, and the Python one's ready, so we'll start running the Python one. Okay, now I like to do a custom installation, usually. But just for now, because we're just doing this basic as we can, we're just going to click the most basic one, and then we're going to say run as administrator. Now, obviously, you usually have to be careful when you do that, because sometimes if you run a program as an administrator and it's like malware, then you'll lose everything. But we know that Python is trustworthy because it's like the Python foundation. And if you don't know what Python is, it's like it's a code executor. It's a thing that executes code on your computer. So that's sort of all you need to know. It's a really nerdy developer thing. Don't worry about it too much. Okay, blah blah blah. We're just going to disable the length limit because that's the least risky option. And it looks like the setup was successful. So that's good, right? We're going to click close, and then we're going to go back in the command prompt. And we're going to go to Python version. And as you can see here, it actually doesn't know where the Python is, right? It's still saying the same thing as before, so we haven't quite succeeded yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to find out where the Python is on our computer. I think it was under app data roaming, I'm pretty sure. Your Python could actually be in a lot of different places. Having a bit of trouble tracking it down. So I'm just going to search for Python here. And hopefully, okay, great, we found it. And we're just going to open the folder location. What was that about? Open the folder location. Okay, cool. As we can see, it's in roaming start menu programs. My God, it's in a very strange location, but that's okay. You know, that's probably fine. Now this does look a bit strange. This may not be the Python that we were looking for. So I'm going to go back into app data and then search for Python again. Maybe there's a different Python. I think this might be the correct one, because this seems like a more sensible location for Python, which is app data local programs Python. That seems probably like more the Python we're looking for. Okay, this is sort of what we're expecting, right? We're expecting something called Python exe. So we've installed this on our system, but the issue is that the computer doesn't know where it is. It has no idea where to look for Python. You're saying Python version, and it's looking everywhere, and it can't find anything. So what we're going to do is we're going to modify our path. So edit system environment variables, and we go to path. And the path is sort of a special thing in Windows which tells Windows, whenever you type in something like Python, where do we look to find that thing? Do we look through the whole computer? No, that would take too long. We only look in the places that is listed in the path. That's just how it works. And so, for instance, this is one of the places. So I'm going to copy this address and chuck it in here. Okay, cool. And then now this is one of the places that Windows will look for Python, is here. Is that new one we just added here, Python 3.10. Okay, and now I think it's been applied. Now, if we go Python version here, it will still fail because this command prompt is using the old path. So I'm going to close it, open up a new command prompt. And it still doesn't work. Okay, so the issue here is that our Python looks like it's lower priority in the path than this other Python that's already there by default. This other Python, you can't trust it because it's made by Windows. Windows put that Python there, and as we all know, Windows is a terrible, terrible company, and everything they make is garbage. So you can't trust anything they do. So we're going to go back to the path, and we're going to change it. And we're going to take this new thing we added, and we're going to move it up so that it's above the old one. So Windows app should be here. See, so it's looking at the Windows app one first, and it's finding that Python, and it's interacting with that one first. So we're just going to move this one up so it's just above the Windows apps one. And we're going to go okay. Get rid of this, and again CMD. Okay, great. See, so that one's above it, and so now if we go Python version. Hey! 3.10.6, baby! We're there! Okay, so that's really good news. I'm a happy man. We have completed step 1. Beautiful. Okay, let's get rid of this. Now, if we type git here, okay, I already installed Git Bash previously, so there are some things about Git already in my system, and it kind of knows where everything is. But we're just going to install, I uninstalled it, so we're just going to install it again. You go to downloads, find the thing that you just downloaded for Git for Windows, and then there's a lot of options here. There are a ton of options. I'm not a very clever man, so I'm just clicking next through all of this, and I just let it do its thing. Now, probably this is very bad practice, but we're already on a Windows, so that's already pretty bad practice in general for using computers. So it's fine. You know, we're just going to make it work. We're not trying to get fancy here. Next thing we have to do is install something called CUDA. And what that does, it lets your computer talk to its GPU in like a really fancy way. Okay, Windows. That's the right architecture. Version 10. Yeah, because these would be for servers. These would be for like computers that don't have screens, that are running somewhere in a big rack somewhere. And we'll do an exe because exes are normal and easy to deal with. And then we'll just download. Okie dokie. And that's going to take a while because it's like a lot. Okay, this is downloading. Maybe we can do something else in the meantime. Okay, the next thing we're going to have to do is download this thing called model kipit. And what this is a machine learning model file. We can close these tabs because they're not important anymore. Okay, and then it's given us this page. Great. Now I'm just going to do I don't know what Emma is, but this one's probably fine. So I'm going to download that one. Notably, I've already done this before. But you download this thing called SDV1 4 and then you rename it to be model Kipit. So that's what you do. I already downloaded it, so we'll just find it and put it in our downloads folder. Okay, so we've just copied the model Kipit we had before down, and again, remember that it'll be called something else when you download it. We're also going to go ahead and download this thing, which I've never used before, but you know, we're just going to do things completely. So let's go follow that link, see what's there. Okay, great, it's installing, and again, it's pretty beefy, right? We're not talking about a small model. Okay, so these two things are installing. I'm gonna head out. You know, I'm gonna go do my things, and I'll come back when these two files have been downloaded and we can finish off the tutorial. Okay, and we're back, and it looks like CUDA has finished downloading. So let's go back to that page again. We've done the Python, done the Git. Time for the CUDA. Now, I'm actually fairly sure that CUDA is already on my computer. Just follow the wizard and then do all the things it tells you to unquestioningly. Don't worry about it, it's fine. Okay, so that's all done. I can close this off. Now we've ticked all those three off. And then it says next, place the model checkpoint next to the CUDA Bash. Okay, so this is the one step that isn't mentioned explicitly here, which is that you have to download this repository and put it on your computer somewhere. Now, to do that, I'm going to use something called Git for Windows, I think. GitHub Desktop, which is this program here. And you just download that and follow the installer to get it. I already have it. And this is, yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to go new, oh, no, not new. So what we're going to do is we're going to go clone repository, because we're making a clone of this one. And over here it'll have the HTTPS URL that we copy. Use URL, and then, yeah, clone. And then that'll just clone the repository, and that'll end up where you put it. So for me, that will be in Documents, GitHub, and then it'll have the same name as this up here. So Stable Diffusion Krita plugin. And I believe it's finished. Yeah, it's finished. This is for my own purposes. Oh, I might actually want to contribute at some point, so I'm just going to click continue, but you can pick either of those options. We don't need GitHub Desktop anymore. We can get rid of it. Okay, so this is now Stable Diffusion Krita plugin, and you might notice that the file names here kind of look the same as what's listed here on GitHub, and that's because we've just taken the files off of GitHub and we put them locally in our computer. Okay, so if we scroll back down here, it said something like place the model Kipit and Krita, and the GFP GAN path next to Krita.bat. So that's referring to this file here, this Krita.bat. So we're just going to go open up another Explorer, go to Downloads, and then GAN. That's the model and the model.kipit, these two models it wanted, and we're just going to drag them into this folder here. So now they're both just sitting there. Great. And after that, we can just run that file. We just double click this one. Okay. And this is going to start a long step of software processes. The code is going to pull some stuff down from GitHub. It's going to install some other things. It's going to take kind of a long time, actually. But if it completes fine, which it did for me the first time and probably it will again, then we're almost finished. There's another step we have to do, but it's actually a pretty simple step. So yeah, just wait for this window to do its thing. This will take a long time. It is actually quite a long process. I think it took maybe about half an hour, maybe 40 minutes or something for me. And it said installing Torch for like a really, really long time. So don't worry if it just looks like it's frozen. It's not. It's just taking a while. Okay, so good news. It's worked. That took about 20 minutes, just for reference. And when we see this line here, UV corn running here, that means that like everything's good. And we're just going to confirm that by going to that that URL right now. Okay, great. So this is good news, because when we visit this URL, which I just typed in manually, firstly, something appears back here, some text appears here. And we see this thing detail not found. If we just go to like a random thing that doesn't exist, it says this site can't be reached. We don't get that, we get this. So when you see these two things, then we know we have completed successfully all of these steps. And that part is complete, which means that Stable Diffusion is running on our computer and it's just waiting for us to give it commands. And the way we're going to give it commands is through a Krita plugin. And so that means to get that Krita plugin working, we have to follow these steps here, which are actually a lot easier to follow. But first, I'm going to open Krita before doing that to show you what Krita will look like to begin with. Okay, so this is usually what Krita looks like. And if you go to Settings, Configure Krita, Python Plugin Manager, you'll see that there's a lot of plugins, but you won't see one called with the right name, right? You'll see a lot of plugins here. The one that we want won't be there. I think it's called like Stable Diffusion Krita something something something. We're going to close Krita now and we're going to follow these steps. So the first thing we have to do is go into the PyKrita folder. This is kind of hard to find. I know where it is because I found it before, and it may be in the same place for you, but it may be somewhere else. It depends where you've installed Krita exactly. So we go C, Program Files, Krita 64, Share, Krita, and then PyKrita. And that's the PyKrita folder that they're talking about here. And in here are all these names, and these are actually all the names of plugins. So a plugin has two components. It has a folder, and then it also has this desktop item. And so once you have both of those in this folder, then that's a new plugin installed. And those two files that we need to create a Krita plugin are in the Krita plugin folder. So these two, all we have to do is copy these into the PyKrita folder, give it administrative privileges. Okay, great, done. And then we open Krita back up again. Okay, and we can already see, now that Krita's open, that there's a difference, which is that we've got this thing here called the SD plugin with all these different tabs. And this means that the installation has gone successfully. If you log in and you don't see that, which could happen, you go back to Configure Krita, and then you go back down to that Python Manager bit, and then you scroll around until you see this thing, Krita Stable Diffusion plugin, and make sure it has a tick next to it. And if it doesn't, add a tick next to it, like you can add a tick there, and then click OK. But luckily, it looks like, you know, it's already installed for us. And now, we're just going to take it for a test drive to make sure that everything's working. We're not going to do anything fancy. We're just gonna make something very basic. Make a new canvas, 512 by 512, because that's a nice small size for my little baby GPU to handle. And we're gonna ask it for, let's say, a watercolor of a beach scene at sunset, vivid, expert detail. Okay, and we're gonna let's ask for 2 different variations for this. 40 steps is fine. All the parameters are okay. And then we just say apply text to image. And then this will freeze. And over here we should see, there we go, see? This line goes up. And at the moment, that means that the Stable Diffusion in our computer is running and it's processing these images. Great. Watercolor of a beach scene. Yep, that definitely kind of looks like what we're talking about. And, ooh, this is really nice actually. And this looks like could be like dunes. This is actually, okay, so basically, this is really good. But why did we bother installing this on Krita? Huh? Why didn't we just go to one of the online interfaces? Well, it's basically because you can use, like, you can use normal painty things to actually add things to this. So I'm going to create, actually, I'm going to add this paint layer up here, and I'm going to paint a little boat. And I'm going to ask Krita to do that again. And I'm going to change the prompt a little bit. I'm going to use the same prompt. I'm going to go to image, which image to image takes an image and then gives you back an image that's like similar. A watercolor of a ship at sunset. And we're going to keep all the qualifiers there as before. And then we're going to make 8 different versions of this. And 20 steps is fine. The denoising strength tells Stable Diffusion how free and wild it can go, or how constrained it is by what you've drawn. So we want it to be pretty constrained because we want pretty much the same image. So we're going to keep denoising at about 25, and hopefully it'll add a little ship here in the picture. So let's go ahead and do that. And again, we can see it's already working away very quickly. Okay, so we have this ship. it definitely doesn't look amazing, but that's why we did 8 of them. So let's see. Also not great. A little better. Maybe a bit better. None of these look very good, I'll be honest. Maybe that one's kind of nice. I mean, that's not too bad. I think that looks okay, right? If we compare this and the original one, certainly it looks a lot better than the one with just the ship there. So there you have it. We've got our watercolor of a sailing ship at sunset. It's vivid. It's all those things. If you want any other tutorials, like, let me know. Be like, hey Luca, give me a tutorial on how to get the new teledildonics thing that I bought working with Stable Diffusion. And I'll do it, man. I'll do it. I'm crazy. So, yeah.